Hey everybody, I'm Elizabeth McSwan from Emac and Hedwig. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you my top 10 most liked photos on Instagram. So here we go. So 2019 is rapidly coming to a close. You're probably watching this video already in 2020. And in the spirit of the Instagram hashtag best 9 images of the year, and I decided that I would take that a step further and do a top 10 most liked photos video to share these images in a more meaningful way and to give you guys a little bit more backstory behind them and why I personally like them. So let's get started. Just gonna pull this up on my phone. So my number 10 image is of this little blue heron. This was taken in New Jersey at Ocean City at a very famous rookery there every year. Species like black-crowned night heron, yellow-crowned night heron, little blue heron, glossy ibis, and maybe some other ones, they all congregate. I don't think it's quite an island. I think it's partially surrounded by water, but also marsh, and it just attracts a lot of birds. And the really cool thing about it is that you get these eye-level views of the treetops. It's essentially adjacent to this highway bridge that goes across this kind of watery marsh area into Ocean City. You basically turn off at this visitor center, you park, and boom, you're eye level with all of these birds in the treetops. And so it's a really cool location. I've been wanting to go for a long time, and I was finally able to go. This was the tail end of a really long cross-country trip that I did with my RV Hedwig. I basically went from Boston to Olympic National Park out in Washington, and then from there went down to southeastern Colorado, hooked around to the Grand Canyon, and then went home. And this trip to Jersey was a little bit impromptu, and it just happened to work out, the timing of it. I met a couple of other photographer friends down there and photographed with them for a little bit. I really love shooting wading birds, herons, egrets, ibis, birds like that. I just think they're really beautiful, and so I really gravitated towards these little blue herons. I just think they're so pretty, and I really love this particular shot because of the eye-level nature of it, also the really soft green background and the pose of the bird and the beautiful kind of leafy perch that it's on. It looks like there's some kind of berries on this tree. I don't know if it's a juniper or something like that. I just really love photographing these birds. And this image was just one of my favorites from that session, so I'm really glad that other people liked it too. Number 9 is of these two American dippers. This was taken at the beginning of that same trip in Olympic National Park at Merrimack Falls. Right before this was taken, I was really kind of annoyed and frustrated because I had just blown this opportunity with a common merganser that was on the same shallow river. That bird had a couple of young, and I was waiting for them to come around a corner so that I could photograph them, and they just came at me too close and too fast, and I just blew it. So I was really happy to find these two birds that were coming upstream, and they were doing their thing without really paying me much attention. American dippers are a western bird species, and their habitat is very much the habitat that we see in this photo. It's fast-moving, shallow streams, and they dip down into the water, hence their name, to grab little grubs and insects and things and eat them. The young bird was just chasing its parent upstream as this parent was frantically trying to get this young food, and it didn't seem like any amount was enough for this little bird, and it was just really fun to watch. This is one of the few times that I've actually taken my teleconverter off of my 400 because I really wanted that 2.8 aperture. It was getting really dark. I needed to get my shutter speed high because there was a lot of movement with these birds, and I wanted to make sure that I was freezing the action. And I got a lot of shots of this particular sequence in focus. And I picked this moment because I just really loved the position of the adult's beak kind of in the juvenile's mouth, or beak, I should say, just feeding that little insect to that fledgling bird. I just thought was really fun. I also really loved the pose of the juvenile bird where you can see its kind of stubby little tail and its short wings were out. I just thought that was really cool. Number 8 is of this eastern towhee. This is by far the most cooperative eastern towhee I have ever come across. This was taken in May of this past year during spring migration. I have to say that I am really not good at warbler photography or songbird photography like this, because learning the calls of birds for me is just really, really tough. It's also a really, really important thing to know when you're out there photographing songbirds, because you can gain so much information by what you're hearing. It is so helpful, and I just really struggle with that. So I was really happy to see this little towhee up in this tree singing its heart out, and I just did my creep and click method, which I did a video about. I'll link it in the description below or somewhere around here if you're interested in checking it out. But I did that method and I was able to get pretty close to this bird, and I just really love its little perch. I love that the leaves are just starting to bud and you can see them. I love the soft green colors in the background. I just really, really love this shot. Number 7 is of this nuthatch. This was taken at a wildlife refuge not far from me. I've gone to this refuge several times. This particular visit, I was going specifically to see what I could get with warblers. At this location, the birds are used to being fed, and you can get birds like white-breasted nuthatches, tufted titmice, and black-capped chickadees to eat basically right out of your hand. And all you have to do is feed them one time and they will follow you around if you stay in another place long enough after you've moved on from that particular spot wherever you were feeding them from. You move on and they will move with you. So that's what this guy, I think, was doing, or at least that's what I suspect. I really love this shot. I actually posted a shot more recently that was very similar to this that you can find on my Instagram feed. But what I love about this shot in particular is I love the posing, the classic white-breasted nuthatch pose, upside down with its head kind of up like that. I love the very soft green background and the soft lighting. I just thought was really, really beautiful, despite the fact that by this time, the time that I was photographing this bird, the sun was getting a little bit high and I was about ready to call it quits. But I just really love that I was able to get that shot. Number 6 is a twofer. This was also taken in New Jersey. I was shooting on a beach with a couple of photographer friends. We were shooting terns, least terns, and the idea was that we would photograph them in some really nice, warm, pre-dawn and early dawn light. And we got a little bit of that, but not a lot of it. The clouds kind of came in, and after a while of photographing the terns, we decided to go for something else. And so I was photographing on the beach, kind of closer to the water, and this gull, I think it's a greater blackback gull. I don't know my gulls very well, but it's carrying what looks like a shark, maybe a dogfish. It certainly looks like a shark. And I just thought that was really, really cool. I have to admit that I'm not a really big fan of gulls in general. I don't usually photograph them, but they do sometimes eat really interesting things. And so this was certainly one of those times. So the first shot that I posted was when it was kind of toddling down to the water's edge. I think it cleaned it off a few times in the water, and then it flew actually a little bit closer to us where the light was a little bit better, and I was able to capture this shot. I got a series of the fish or shark going down the hatch, but I really liked this one because you just see the very tail end of it, literally the tail end of it, and then this huge bulge kind of in the throat and belly of the gull. So I just thought that was really cool. And then of course you get the better light. The light over the horizon in this shot I just think is really pretty. Number 5 is of this white-faced ibis. This was taken in Utah at a refuge called, Bear River Migratory Bird Refuge. Kind of a mouthful. This refuge is located outside of Salt Lake City in a town called Brigham City. It's a really vast area, and I was really interested in photographing the American avocets that were there. And the white-faced ibis were basically a lucky bonus. In this particular area of the refuge, there were these ponds, or maybe even mud flats, and that's where a lot of the white-faced ibis and the American avocets were located. And what you can't tell from this photo is that the bugs, the mosquitoes and biting flies were really bad. And the first morning that I was there, I got out of my van Hedwig, and as soon as I stepped out of the van, I started to get swarmed by mosquitoes. And believe it or not, despite the fact that I'm from the Northeast and you would think that I would have thought about biting bugs in the middle of this very kind of marshy area, I didn't think about it. I was not prepared. I didn't have any bug spray. I ended up actually getting back in the van and going back to the Walmart that I had spent the night at and buying a whole bunch of bug spray and then going back to the refuge. And so by the time I got back, I had missed that like pre-dawn, like really nice light. The light was still nice, but I missed that kind of initial first light. So the next morning, which is when this photo was taken, when I went back, I made sure that I had all of the bug spray and I was able to get some really nice shots. This was one of my favorites with the very soft pastel pre-dawn light with the sort of not perfect reflection of the bird, which I kind of liked for this shot, and the very, very soft blurred background I just thought was really pretty. So I'm really proud of that shot. Number 4 is of this Prairie Warbler. This was taken at the same location as the Eastern Towhee shot. This location ended up being really, really good for Prairie Warblers. It was by far the most numerous at that particular location. And despite the fact that this isn't personally my favorite shot that I got of a Prairie Warbler that I then posted, I really do like this shot a lot. I like how close it got to me, how much I was able to fill the frame with this bird, and that I got a really, really nice soft green background. I love that it popped high enough where I was able to get a little bit of separation there from the background. Number 3 is another twofer and another gull post, which again, I'm not really a big gull person, but this particular situation I thought was fairly unique. This is the Charles River. A lot of people that aren't from the Boston area, when they think of the Charles River, they think of this huge, wide, vast river that separates Boston from Cambridge. But the truth is, you get a little bit further west and the river narrows considerably and it also gets a lot shallower. And you can find quite a number of birds on the river, especially at this location. So this bird is at the bottom of a little man-made waterfall, and that particular waterfall attracts a lot of birds, especially black-crowned night herons and great blue herons. And I photographed a lot of black-crowned night herons at this location. If you go through my Instagram feed, not so much this year, but in previous years, I love to photograph the black-crowned night herons at this location because they stand so still at the bottom of these falls as they're waiting for the fish to go over and get disoriented as they land at the bottom, and then they just, whoop, they pick them up and down the hatch they go. And the same is true for great blue herons. So it's really fun to photograph these birds at really slow shutter speeds because you can get the birds tack sharp, but you get this beautiful blur in the water. So when I went to the falls on this particular day, there were no black-crowned night herons, but I did see this perch in the water. I think it's a log. And I remember thinking like, oh, that would be a really cool perch for a black-crowned night heron. Alas, there wasn't one there, but there was this gull. And so I just decided to see kind of what I could get with the gull there. This first shot was taken, I think, at 1/15 of a second. It let out this cry, this sort of classic gull cry. And I just clicked my shutter. I really wasn't expecting anything sharp because I thought my shutter speed was too slow. Of course, when birds vocalize, they often are moving some. So it was really interesting when I got home to see that I actually had gotten some sharp shots. And the second shot here was basically just an experiment for my own entertainment. I really just wanted to see and compare and contrast how different the shots would look with a slow shutter speed versus a really fast shutter speed that would really freeze the water. And I got a bunch of different shots at this shutter speed. Some you can see the log and some you can't. I liked this one because you couldn't see the perch that the bird was sitting on or standing on. And it just really gave you this sense that this water was just rushing all around the bird. And I just really liked that about this shot. So number 2 is of this American avocet. This was taken at the same location as the Whitefaced Ibis shot. Again, I really love photographing wading birds, and the American avocets were so much fun. They have so much personality. And since I was being quiet and still were just kind of doing their thing without paying attention really to what I was doing. So I love a lot of things about this shot. This was taken in the afternoon. It was mostly overcast, but behind me, over my left shoulder, was the sun, and every once in a while the sun would peek out from a break in the clouds. And in front of me, behind the bird, which you can kind of get a sense of here, there were these really dark, kind of stormy clouds. So I really love the light in this shot. I love the contrast between the bright light that's on the bird and the sort of darker, stormy feeling that at least I get that's going on behind the bird. I love the raised, really muddy foot. And so for those reasons, I just really love this photo. All right, so my number one most liked photo on Instagram this year was a little bit of a surprise to me. And it's this shot of this white-throated sparrow. This was taken just a few days ago, I think a few days before Christmas, to the same refuge that I got the white-breasted nuthatch shot, almost in the same exact spot. And I saw this white-throated sparrow and I really wanted to get a photo of it. And white-throated sparrows tend to forage for food on the ground. So what I decided to do was just throw some of the seed that I was feeding the other birds onto the ground and then essentially lie in the snow and see what I could get. And so that's what I did for this shot. This is actually something that I really love doing. I love getting eye level with birds that are on the ground like this, especially small birds, and photographing them kind of surrounded by really kind of nice color blur. Depending on the environment, of course, like if it's grass, I get some blades of grass that are in focus and stuff, but it's mostly about the color palette. So that's what I really like about this shot, is that you can tell that it's snow. You have this bird that is really sharp and is giving me a little bit of attitude. At least it looks like it's giving me some attitude. And you get this beautiful, just very wintry, of course there's snow, but you get this beautiful wintry color. And that's really what I love about this shot is that. So I was really happy that other people liked it too. So thanks so much for watching, everybody. I love telling these stories behind my images. I could go on forever about it. Hopefully I wasn't too long-winded and this video isn't super long, but I hope you enjoyed it regardless. If you like this video, please give it the thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel. It would really help me out a lot. You can also find me on Instagram. Like you may have figured out already from this video, I post a lot of my work on Instagram. It's the best way to see my work. You can also find me on Patreon for as little as $2 a month. You can get early access to videos like this, along with a bunch of other really cool stuff. So please check me out over there. Until the next video, everyone, take care, happy adventuring, happy shooting, and Happy New Year. See you later. Bye.